So thanks, Savita. Really great to have you in our fun car interviews while we negotiate to make sure we don't try to go to Canada, which is always kind of an exciting little moment here, because if you get trapped in the wrong lane, you all of a sudden are at customs. So that's not something we want to have. Because I don't know if you have your passport. I don't have my passport on me.
I don't have, and I don't even have a visa, so I would be like sent back home. Yeah.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you've been working on since we last talked?
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me here in this interview. It's been absolute pleasure, and I really enjoy these. Off late, I've been working on a project called Conveyor. I'm really excited about it. It's about application modernization. Every company goes through this. Like right now, they're all heavily investing in hybrid cloud and containerization. And they have this giant working apps, and they're still working. And if it's working, no one wants to touch it. But then you have already invested so much money into like cloud and whatnot, and you want to move those apps.
So you're saying that paying for a data center in a cloud and all that is not, goal in itself? It's like people don't want to just pay for it to do nothing?
They do. But the thing is that it's like getting revolutionized, and like when everyone does it, you also want to like get on the train and then like be a part of this awesome journey. So that's what like I'm doing right now. In the modernization, we help the older applications, and we try to give them an estimate, assess, and what needs to be changed to refactor and re-platform and Kubernetes. So that's what the project's about, and it has like super cool, interesting things. And the most interesting part for me is I'm building the community.
Nice, yeah.
Yeah. I recently got accepted into CNCF, so it's a CNCF sandbox project. So that gives me the awesome opportunity to actually build it.
Right.
And the beauty of whatever I learned in Kubernetes, I'm taking them all, and not the heavy process, because this is a small project, and so I'm taking them all and like distilling it, and then taking the little things that will work for the current project, and I'm like doing that to Conveyor. So it's been like working pretty great. Less work for me.
Yeah, right. So here's the question I have to ask here. So I've built a number of communities, kind of over my career. What have you found to be like the most surprising thing that you learned while trying to build this community that it never would have crossed your mind? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, I'm still building the community, but the one thing that stumbles me these days is the amount of like the ways that you have to use. It's just not about mailing list anymore, so you have to be savvy with all the technologies. Kind of like stumps me on top of the human factor. Like these days, the attention span of everyone's like super limited, and be it part of the community or anything, to keep them interested, it's really hard to like keep someone interested. So you have to do really good work. So like I'm trying to balance, like not to introduce so many stuff, but also like give them a safe space. I want to create a safe space for everyone. That is the part that I find the hardest, because I can do all the work that needs to be done, but still there are like X number of things that's like out of my hands. So I should know how to react in that moment and how to handle a particular given situation. So all those things I'm still figuring out. I'm not an expert, and it's good to know that you have done a lot of these, so I can like you're a text away. So I'll
right.
like ask.
I am happy to help. The reason I'm always curious about that sort of thing about most kinds of activities, like so I relatively recently became an academic full time, right? And one of the things that's been most surprising to me is how different the cadence of fall semester is versus spring semester, and because it's where the break falls, because Thanksgiving is so late, relatively speaking, and spring break is kind of early, right? And so it throws off the cadence, or like the speed or whatever of the entire semester, or changes it, and that's been the hardest thing, one of the weirdest things for me to like wrap my head around, because I never would have guessed that was such a pronounced effect, so that's why I was curious. So what is the project is officially a sandbox project now, which is very cool. What does that change? Like, what do you feel like that brings to the table for the Conveyor project?
So it's again everything for me bubbles down to the community, but the another portion of it that is that there are no open source modernization tools available. So that puts Conveyor at a unique place where it has the potential to collaborate with so many folks. So it's going to be like one big community, and everyone, it's like, even though they work for so many different companies, at the end of it, it's just going to be community. And that's one part like I'm super excited about. And the next thing is that the potential of like all the new stuff that you can add, like for example, my friends are working on so right now the project supports like analysis of Java application. So like you can supply a binary or like a old Java code, and then it will do a deep analysis based on some of the rule sets, and then it will spit out telling like, oh, to modernize is in like to re-platform it from the current VM to a Kubernetes cluster. These are the things that you need to change, and these are the things that are risky, and these are the things like the amount of time it will take to do it, and these are the places where you have to like do, like for example, you cannot hard code the secret anymore, you have to like inject from outside. So if it finds a secret, it'll like highlight it, and then it'll say like, oh, your imports are outdated, so you have to like do this, you have to upgrade the language, like all the little things that you would miss in general. So that's what the current capability is. The things that people are working on in this project is adding multiple languages to it in an extensible way, so anyone could come and plug in stuff. So today we had this Conveyor workshop, and then we met a couple of folks who attended it, and they were saying like they did not have, like one of them mentioned that they did not have such a questionnaire which could just give them an all 360-degree view of like how they can they didn't know what they got into kind. It would have been nice that if they had the opportunity to see all these things beforehand. And so many, it was like nice to have such conversations, seeing that bringing so many folks together, and I think that is possible because it is CNCF project. So kind of, even though like it was Conveyor has always been an open source project. Red Hat has kept it open source from the start, and right now, but once it became a CNCF project, it kind of gets its own, you know, it's like a status bump. I should say, like so like a lot of eyes on the project, and so many companies and folks want to collaborate, so it's so cool.
I would imagine. I mean, it also kind of, I feel like it would also give it a certain amount of almost like ratification, right? Like, you know, it's a pretty good chance this project is going to stick around. So like investing in learning how to use the tool and stuff like that isn't, I mean, one of the hardest problems you have in the open source world, right, is that anybody can build anything they want, and then they can stop working on it also anytime they want. And so I think one of the hard choices is like, you know, should I go with this path or this path? Because if you invest in the wrong one and that project goes away, you know, you're often in quite a lot of trouble.
Tell me about it. So I used to be a platform engineer. One of the biggest no things for me is like pulling in a dependency that is being maintained by one single maintainer, and which is fine, like one single maintainer is still good, but then you look at the commit history and the project hasn't been touched for like 2 years, and then you don't want to build your infrastructure around it, and so it's like setting it up for failure, because like your entire thing is just like built around one little thing which is not maintained anymore. So that's a big no for me. And like to put something in production, I always make sure that it's not maintained by a single maintainer, because things happen, life happens. I'm not like saying that they should be responsible for doing it. Anyone who's like a single project maintainer should be like doing it lifelong. It's not feasible, it's not possible. So having a good section model or like having multiple people actually helps.
Right, yeah, no, I completely agree. I think, you know, I much prefer, excuse me, sorry, I used to do some theater work in college, and you know, one of the things that you had to create was like the stage manager's book, right? And it was the run book for the show, and it had every single little detail in it. And in those days, we used to call it the hit by the bus factor. where but these days we've been trying to get to take off, right? Something more like the win the lottery factor, right? So a positive experience instead of a negative one. But sometimes, as you said, life happens, right? And people want to go in a different direction. Making sure that your infrastructure isn't going to fall over is really important. You got to have some way to back that up.
Yeah, even like the Cube project got pretty hit during the pandemic. Yesterday I watched the contributor summit and someone mentioned that it saw like a 25% decrease in the amount of contributors.
Oh, really?
So, and such a project can still withstand because it's huge, so many contributors, but you can think about the single maintainers or like projects which are like small or maintained by like few people. It was a lot, and it's still a lot. Like so many people are still going through burnout and whatnot. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of the things. So I have anecdotal evidence of this as well, but there's actually been some research done about like the new students, like freshmen coming in as this year, are kind of very, very high strung. Like very kind of their baseline stress level is already very high, and so they're having a lot of trouble with college. Because and there's nobody's really sure why yet, but it's probably pandemic related, right? But yeah, like it's people are not back yet, like there's some of it, and I think there's a lot of particularly politicians who want us to be back, but it's just not really true yet, and I think you see that in the open source community just as much as anywhere else.
Yeah, it's like no one's like psychologically ready, to be honest, to be out and about, because like everyone was like confined to their own space for a really long time. So it takes time. Yeah. Sometimes it takes like double the amount of it's like a cause and effect. It's not like immediate on and off switch. Right. So you say like, oh, you cannot come out of the house for like 10 days and all of a sudden you're like, oh, you should be in a room full of like 10,000 people.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an adjustment. Well, I mean, I think that's why, you mentioned kind of a safe space. It's like, that's why I think one of the things I also like about open source, particularly ones that have strong communities, is it's a lot easier to kind of re-enter society, if it's with a community of people that, even if you don't know them particularly well, you at least share a lot of like something with, right? In the case of Conveyor, right? It's we all work on this kind of problem, right? But it doesn't matter what it is, but it gives you that community, and it's almost like safer to kind of re-engage again and kind of ease into it, rather than I take public transit all the time, right? A whole bunch of random people who are getting on the bus, and I'm the only one wearing a mask. So
it definitely takes some time getting used to it, and the fact that now if you it almost feels like the roles have reversed. So it's like if you are wearing a mask, it's like you just get stared down. So you have to have a strong willpower to like keep that going. My family back home, like I keep telling them like wear mask, and they're like, no one's wearing anymore, and like they are stuck between the social construct right now, like where if they wear, then they will be like tossed out or like not
ostracized. Yeah. I will say Boston is nice in that regard, like as in there's not a lot of that sense of you're giving in by wearing a mask, so it's pretty tolerant. But on the flip side, there's not a lot of people wearing masks, even on like public transit with like enclosed spaces and stuff. So it's a little it's a little crazy, but you do what you got to do, I guess. So let's see, what else can we talk about? So I noticed you looking out the windows. I mean, isn't the view out here? This is Belle Island, it's called, or Belle Isle, and we're still in the U.S., even though the river, right, is basically the demarcation line between the U.S. and Canada. I don't know, I just thought this little drive around was really pretty.
It's super pretty. I'm like, it's so peaceful too. And thanks for not taking me to Canada.
Yeah, exactly. We aren't completely done yet. There are still opportunities for us to get trapped and go to Canada. So we'll just have to keep our eyes open. So you've been a lot more involved in at least the Insider Show. Have you been getting more involved in Cube by Example as well? Or kind of more broadly, I guess?
I would look forward to that. So I'm hoping that I could bring a little bit of Conveyor into the Cube by Insider like there are like tutorials in the Cuba Insider which I really like, learning paths. Sorry,
Yeah,
I was
learning paths.
exactly
Yeah.
looking for the
Yeah.
word. Like I want to like bring this in so that like there is a chance that folks can pick it up, and like someone wants to contribute or someone wants to just participate. It's just like, you know, it's a nice place. I really like the Cuba Insider. Not just a show because I'm on it, and not because like I'm also one of the co-hosts, but like overall I like the people and like the mission too. It's catered towards any beginner too. Like if you look at some of the Kubernetes stuff there, like pod and like learn basic Kubernetes, it's hard. Now everyone talks about Kubernetes, but no one explains it like what it is. Like no one says like at the beginner level, so it just goes above your head. So I'm hoping that we could, I would participate more in other avenues that are available, like whatever it is. I want to figure it out, and I want to like be a part of it more.
Yeah, that's cool. I've been working on a Tekton learning path for Cube by Example, and I could definitely see a Conveyor one. I think one of the things, what I was doing with the Tekton learning path, the problem I think with application modernization, right, is it's one of those like software engineering activities where when you look at it to go start doing it, it looks pretty straightforward, and then you kind of get into the weeds and you're like, oh my god, this is so much harder and scarier and everything else than I realized it would be. And so I think using a tool like, you know, like that, and I've actually used similar tools years and years ago, it's really useful because it gives you a sense of like all the in the weeds scary bits before you go in, right? So you can kind of like get at least a sense of, you were kind of saying this before, it's like, okay, we're gonna have to like fix this piece, we're gonna have to upgrade that part, and then if you kind of can know all that before you get into it, you can plan for it properly. You know, you're less likely to be terrified later. So I think it's they're really useful, even if it isn't a, you know, magic bullet kind of. And I think it's like some people expect you to be able to just like plug a button and, you know, magic happens here.
I like to think it of like this, like in this awesome car, we have like super many features, right? It's not like it's doing all the work for you, but then it gives you like a awesome lane assist or like the blind view mirror, like if some car comes by, the blind, all the nice things. Like you can think of it like that. Like it's not gonna handhold you too much, but then it will be like there to assist you with the journey and make your journey easier. So that's how like I see it. I know sorry about the bad analogy.
I was actually going to say it's like it kind of helps you stay in your lane, right? And because I think that is a deceptive, like, you know, I always talk about package managers, databases. Those are also very deceptively easy pieces of software. And then you kind of get into it and you're like, wait, this transaction has to be atomic? How am I going to make that happen if there's a power failure? You know, so database is much harder to write than people realize when they start writing one.
I'm super bad at it. I would never touch any database. The fun fact is that on my first 2 weeks of my first real graduate job, I deleted prediction database without a backup.
Oh, that's no good. Yeah, no good. Although, on the flip side, whose fault was it that there was no backups, right?
But I did learn stuff. So I learned a lot of Linux that day because it was like stored as a file, so the file never actually gets deleted even though it goes away. So like the worst part was it was a Saturday morning before my coffee, and I was like, oh, I'm getting alerts. What is that? Let me check it out. Or like I'll just do this, and that's the bad thing. So I made a rule in my life that I will never do anything just after getting up, that too over a weekend. And
well, I don't know. I mean, you're doing this interview, and you told me that you hadn't had coffee yet today, so I don't know.
I'm not the one behind the wheel, so I'm
like, that's true. That's true. Right. But I completely agree with the rule of must have coffee first.
Yeah, and one thing that I want to also bring to KBI whenever I have a chance is that I want to include a little bit more about the security tracks. You know, like security is also like important, and I like to see more of those. And I want to, like, if there is time, if someone would accept whatever I'm writing, then I'll be like happy to like put all those things that's another thing that people like even the growing engineers and like students in early professional in the career, they should like not, it's not an afterthought, and
Right.
there are like so many supply chain attacks and whatnot. So
Yeah, I think what's interesting is like as our kind of infrastructure gets more sophisticated, there's even more opportunities for us to not really know what's going on, and as such, really potentially bad security holes. And so I think one of the things that I like about kind of a lot of the approach to how kind of Kubernetes works and things like that is that you have, it's almost like the security is on by default. Red Hat, like RHEL, a lot of that is like that too. So it's super nice when you are trying to, kind of build out an application, is that as long as I know how to turn the security off, I can kind of do my development or stuff and have things break because of security, and then turn it off while I try to figure out what it is, right? And then turn it back on. I do this with like SC Linux all the time. I leave it on all the time, and then if I run into a problem, I turn it off, make sure that's the problem, and then and then figure out what it is, and then I can turn it back on again. But I think that kind of model is becoming ridiculously important because you know so little about how, like, because you have this wicked long supply chain. Yep. So yeah, I definitely would agree. So are you giving a talk? I can't remember.
Yeah, I have a. So I am one of the. I have a maintainer track session for SIG security.
Okay.
So like I help lead the SIG security documentation sub project. So I am a person who believes everything and starts and ends with documentation. So. Like, you want to hack a project, you read the documentation, you will have everything, even including the loopholes that someone would have missed. So Kubernetes documentation is quite awesome and extensive, but there are places where it could be improved in terms of security. Like when I used to work as a platform engineer, I struggled to find the proper RBAC, and RBAC is everyone's nightmare.
Right.
So like we want to improve little things like that. So when this SIG got, they had the first meeting. They said like, oh, we are forming a new SIG and everything. I just raised my hand up and I said like, I want to volunteer for this. I don't know much about security. I'm willing to learn. But I want to volunteer for this because this is what I want to see. I want to make this documentation like one stop shop. Yeah, one-stop shop for everything because it's already awesome. And why to like look at something? So if you have something official from the documentation, the Kubernetes folks itself, the amount of issues that you'll run into would be less, and then to find some RBAC randomly on the internet and then copy it and put it where it'll give access to every single thing, and you would just like, oh, it worked. So it's like it starts with an innocent POC, like, oh, it works, and then like you never intend to go back and change it. I'm guilty of it. I've done many times because
you intend to, you just never get to.
Yeah,
but you always want to.
Yeah, and then like there is less time, and you're always on like something when you're doing a POC or like on a deadline, telling like, oh, I want to like figure out what would work because someone pays your check, so you cannot always be researching or like playing away with all these shiny new toys.
Right.
So like I have been guilty of that. So that is one of the goals that I personally tell myself, that I want to like help make this thing better.
More approachable, simpler. I was just going to say actually, for the benefit of the audience, in case you have never heard it out loud, RBAC is how you pronounce the acronym for role-based access control, and it's one of those things where like there's so many things that until you actually hear somebody say it, you're like, oh, I don't know how to pronounce that in my head. So that's why I wanted to just offer that. So rolling back to the talk, so you're giving a talk about the documentation for RBAC, or what is it you're leading exactly?
So it's for the entire project. So it's just not so I will talk about the documentation sub project, but the KubeCon's highlight. It's
Oh,
going to
okay.
be on the assessment. So the SIG security has like 3 or 4 sub-projects. Audit, that does the Kubernetes audit, which is really, really important because we need to know where we also like, even a big project can have its like little fault, so we need to be on top of it. So that project helps with that. And there is this security tooling sub project where like recent achievement of that, it's automated CVE list. So website didn't have the automated Kubernetes CVE list, and you have to be subscribed to the mailing list. And I just control all delete them. So
Right,
I select all and delete them. So
Yeah.
need to find a place where you can have it as a feed or something. So those are the kind of work the tooling does. And then there is documentation that you heard about, and there is also self-assessments. So each individual or like related project to Kubernetes can come in and like get the threat modeling done, and like some reports and stuff like that. So this year's highlight is going to be that. Last KubeCon was documentation highlight, so we talked in depth, in detail about like the entire sub project. This time it's going to be like 5 to 10 minutes, quickly saying like what was the things that was done between the last KubeCon, this KubeCon,
Gotcha.
and like what we are planning to work in the next few months. Because it's nice to have little goals.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that it has to be done or like completed, because everyone has got their lives. But so those are the things that I'll be like highlighting in the talk. It's another thing that I want to like talk about when I talk about SIG security. It really warms my heart because the co-chairs put so much effort into making that a safe place for anyone and everyone. That is my inspiration that I took from that and put it in the Conveyor community to make sure that I bring it along. It's not per se like a thing that you write down, or it's not a rule, or it's like how do I say? It's a quality or something that you learn and and practice.
I'm trying to think of a word for that.
I can't think of the word for that. I'm like
kind of like a value, or like a I don't know. It'll probably come to me in like 3 hours, and I'll be like, oh, that was the word we were looking for.
So yeah, so these are the things that I'm like doing right now.
Cool.
I'm excited about this KubeCon because I have few free days where I'm just gonna go sit back and watch my friends talk.
Nice.
Nothing else.
Yeah, that is definitely nice.
Yeah.
I find conferences are significantly more relaxing after my talk.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm always like stressed out up until then.
Yep. Like last time I was so stressed out that I forgot my laptop in the hotel room.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah.
it wasn't like Valencia, in the hotels were like so far. It's not like walking distance.
Yeah, because I was thinking about going, and I thought the same. I was like, it's like a 20-minute ride, dude, from the hotel to the conference. This is like kind of ridiculous.
Yep. So, and then they didn't have taxis. So it's not like here. They don't have that many taxis. The entire city or the town had like 100 or 150 taxis. That's about it. And they also had some huge match or something like game going on at the same time. So like it was very, very hard to get a taxi.
Yeah, I imagine.
And they had their own taxi app, like a Uber or something. That was also very unreliable because they kept canceling on you because like it was hard.
Yeah.
But like you learn few words along the way. It was fun. I really loved. Like it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I would love to go back for a vacation.
I haven't been to Valencia. I was in Sevilla not that long ago, and I really wanted to go on that trip, and I was going to take my wife, and we were going to like have like a bit of a vacation or whatever, and then she went and took a job, which she hasn't had in I don't know how many years. But you know, it was a brand new job, so she wasn't gonna like ditch for like a week and a half to go. And I was like, because it would have been so much fun. So I don't know, but I might be able to drag her to KubeCon Amsterdam, maybe. You know, we can go to that. But yeah, I really liked the south of Spain. I hear Valencia is different, but still, that I had never been there until I went to, like I said, Sevilla a couple of years ago.
It was beautiful. It was my first Europe trip, so I'm just gonna be like all awesome about it.
Yeah.
And they have the best oranges and orange juice in the entire world.
Yeah.
So that was something nice, and I like the
mean,
art
there is a
scene.
type of orange named after the place, right?
Yeah,
So.
yeah. I like their art scene. I really like checking out art wherever I go. I don't. On that note, have you walked around this beautiful city downtown, and have you seen the murals?
I've seen some of the murals, yeah.
Oh my
not
God.
a ton, but I walked around a lot on Sunday. And yeah, it's funny because I was here like 15 years ago for like a sales call, and it's like a stark difference. And yeah, like there's one right there,
Yeah.
the elephant on the wall. I mean, there's a lot of cool, there's a lot of cool kind of hidden art,
Yep,
you have to be like paying attention. So I'm sure I've missed 2/3 of it, but yeah, it's really quite cool.
It's so beautiful. I was like, oh my God. It feels like everything has a meaning to it, and it's I wouldn't call everything as super abstract too. So I could spend hours just staring at them and like
Just kind of walking around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did that on Sunday too a little bit, and then like I'm hoping that Friday I'll get to do a little bit because I really wanted to go to the Eastern market, something like that. They said
I went by a sign for it. I think it was Eastern Market. It's supposed to be really cool. One of the other people who's involved in the show, Tam, she said one of her trips here, she went and said it was really awesome. We were literally just talking about it last night or earlier today. But yeah, I'm sorry that my trip is like super tight, but because otherwise I would definitely do the same. But I have to give a lecture on Thursday, so
that sounds fun too.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just fret if I have to like stand in front of like so many kids, students.
Yeah, you do kind of get the hang of it after a bit, and and it's a lot easier if you've already taught the class. But even so, every group of students, right, goes at a different pace.
Yeah.
So I can't just like recycle the old slides immediately and just pop it up. I gotta like work through it and figure out what exactly I'm going to say and like what does this group of students seem to be having more trouble with than that group of students. It was like really interesting. Like my first semester teaching it, the students really were not wrapping their head around like types of graphs. And so I kind of, the second semester I made it kind of a hyper focus, and then all of the students seemed to get it just fine. And so I'm not sure if I was teaching it better or if it was just, so I don't, it's been a really interesting journey, teaching for a living. But yeah, it's cool.
And not to mention the vacation time that you would get over the summer.
In theory, yeah. So the what's funny is that because we run a summer like internship program, and I'm pretty heavily involved with that. So yeah, I did not actually get very much of my summer off. I was a little disappointed. I was hoping to have some more break because there's a lot of software I want to build. All open source, of course, but. Yeah, finding the time is still very difficult. I'm hoping this summer will be more sane because I think we, like everybody else, have had the pandemic being over turnover. So we lost a lot of people, and have to replace a lot of people, and don't even have all the people hired that we need. And the organization I'm with is like doubling in size every year. So it's been a little crazy, but we're getting there.
I see a lot of intake in STEM. I see a lot of people showing interest in STEM these days. So when I went for grad school, that particular semester, there were like 300 to 400 computer science master graduate students. And then the next semester, there were like 600 or 700.
Oh, wow.
Like it was just like doubled in like less than a year.
Yeah, right.
So yeah, I can imagine like it must be like crazy busy.
Well, we're getting a lot of more students, and then on top of that, like it's a new department, right?
Yeah.
So we're doing data science, and so we, our first freshman class was this fall, and we took, I don't know, something like 100 new freshmen, but I think we want to like double and triple it, but we also need faculty members to teach the classes. So we added like 7 new faculty members last semester, and we're going to add another 7. And while that doesn't sound like a big number for like Red Hat or whatever, like normally a department adds like a person every year, maybe a person every 2 years. So adding 7 is like a lot. It's been kind of crazy. Well, so we're just about here. So I hate to say thanks so much for your time.
Thank you
and
for having
I hope
me.
you enjoyed the drive.
Oh, I really loved it. As long as I didn't have to drive it, it
Right.
was like really enjoyable. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no problem.
And,
Always glad to do it.
looking forward to all the awesome things that KBEI is gonna do.
Yeah, and it's you do co-host the KBEI show.
Yep.
So maybe the next time we do something like this, we're going to make you actually drive people around or whatever we decide to do.
As long as you're gonna be in the parking lot.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, thanks.
Thank you so much.